Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
People have been really complaining about products coming from China. I mean, I've heard about this, and it's hard to know what's coming from China and what's not coming. But Arthur OKEN, who is the founder and runs the SavOn Global Meds here in Palm Beach County and all over, actually, Florida, he's someone that really understands it so much that he wrote an article in our October issue. And it's it was a September issue, Are Americans at Risk with Chinese Generic Drug Imports? So welcome to our show, and what is all that about, Arthur?
Well, I started reading up on it, and I got to tell you, I went into shock. I literally went into shock. First of all, I never knew that we were getting generic drugs from China. I had done a lot of research on India, and was pretty satisfied that the FDA was doing its job with India. They found a problem a number of years ago. People heard about it, and they said, don't buy drugs from India. I'm just trying to build up to China. And but the FDA has a major presence in India, and they've been working with the Indian manufacturers to improve their quality. But I never knew that we got generics from China. I'm referring to some notes right now, and I found out that I was surprised that the FDA approved 16 generic drugs for sale in the U.S. in 2016, 38 in 2017, and from what I understand, there's another 59 coming up in 18 and 19. Now, what's happening is the drug manufacturers are, the people who buy prescription drugs for the insurance companies and for the pharmacies want to buy the cheapest they can buy. And believe it or not, China's coming in less than India. But the problem is that there's a lot of problems with the Chinese manufacturing. According to Fierce Farmer, the FDA is not doing its job. There's been a couple of notices that people may have read that they've halted a few of the products coming from China. But the thing is, when the FDA wants to inspect a facility in China, they have to give them notice well in advance that they're coming in to inspect the facility.
Do they not have to do that in the United States or somewhere else?
No, they do. They do their inspections, unannounced.
I see.
All right. So, gee whiz, if I have 2 weeks and I know the FDA is coming in, I'm going to make sure that the line is running well. And the FDA depends on the Chinese records to show that the Chinese are producing the product up to snuff. And there have been a lot of cases where they have falsified their records. And that is scary. And there's also a shortage of a lot of medications. And the FDA is allowing the Chinese to manufacture a lot of these generic drugs in plants that have not met their standards.
Even now that they know that that's true?
They know that that's true, where there's a shortage of cancer drugs, hypertension medications, and they're allowing the Chinese to bring in, to manufacture it. They're dependent on the Chinese providing records that the drugs are living up to snuff, and it scares the daylights out of me.
Absolutely. Well, Arthur, and I want to just tell everybody my guest is Arthur OKEN, and he is the founder and the president of SavOn Global Meds. It's your global pharmacy connection. Let me give you some information how you can get in touch with him. Please remember, this is Pencil Talk Radio. I'm going to give you a phone number. I'll give you a toll-free number, and that's 1-888-980-8564. You can actually call the local number, which is 561-432-3294, and I will continue to give you these numbers throughout the show. I'll also give you his website, and that's SavOnGlobalMeds.com, SAVON meds.com. Now, let me also tell you something that I was told by a say it was not a pharmacist. It was a pharmaceutical engineer, something like that. Years and years ago, he said, when you can afford it, buy the real thing. Don't buy generics. He always told me that. And he said, because sometimes it's one tiny little thing that's different from generic to the other. But I think that was something like 20 years ago.
No.
Oh, now even so?
Yeah, what happens is the generic manufacturers have a threshold that they have to meet in terms of the active ingredient. It can be 10 plus or minus 10%. I'm not too sure, but the threshold will differ. There are certain drugs that cannot tolerate this difference, particularly people that take up medications for epilepsy. The U.S. has become very, very tight on manufacturing of seizure medications, and they will only accept ones that have a very tight standard in there. The other thing is that the active ingredient has to be within this threshold, but every manufacturer could put different inactive ingredients to bind the product. And a lot of people find that sometimes they'll buy very common generic drugs, and lo and behold, it's a different color. And the next time they go back in, it's another color. Well, those are all different manufacturers. The pharmacy is buying the cheapest that they can buy, or what's being supplied to them, and which means that you could be getting different inactive ingredients, and a lot of people can't tolerate some of these inactive ingredients.
So this man was right.
Well, that's true. That's true. And it's one of the reasons, and it's surprising that we have a lot of people buying branded from us because they get reactions to the generic. It's unbelievable. I mean, I'm a metformin user, and I have a lot of people who are buying Glucophage, which is the brand, because they have had reactions to the generic. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be buying generics. If you have no problem, don't worry about it. But if you find that you constantly be changing from one generic to another generic, but because it's what the pharmacy is providing you, and you're feeling something different happening, it could be the drug, and I would talk to the doctor, and maybe you should be going to getting the brand. Now the problem is, the insurance companies don't want you to go to the brand. They won't allow you. They want you to buy the generic, and the pharmacy wants you to buy the generic. And I actually had my pharmacist pull me over and said, I need to get the brand from my mother. I can't get it. Can you get it for me?
Oh,
of course I can get the brand.
Oh, that's amazing.
Isn't it surprising? I mean,
yes.
I'm sure a lot of your audience has tried to get a brand, and the insurance company said no. The doctor has to write a letter explaining to them why the person has to use the brand. And this tolerance level that I was talking about, Synthroid was one of those products. The generics back a number of years ago weren't meeting the tolerance levels for the Synthroid. And still today, if you're using Synthroid, you really can't switch back and forth between that and the generic of the Synthroid. So you're either using Synthroid or you're using the generic, but you can't go back and forth in the doctor's minds. They have corrected it, but I have an enormous number of people who use Synthroid, and because doctors in the back of their mind say, hey, I know there was always a problem with Synthroid. And it's amazing. I have an awful lot of people buying Crestor, Nexium, Cymbalta brands because there's so many generics coming out for those. And the doctor wants them to use the brand.
So this brings us back now to Chinese. That's why I was.
Well, that's the scary part.
That's right, because now even if they are made here in the United States and it's a little bit different, can you imagine what China can do?
Yes. Well, one of the things that we do not handle Chinese products.
I wanted you to say that, so that's good.
We do handle Indian. Because of the major presence that they have. Now, a lot of the products the line may not be inspected by the FDA, but the FDA is in that plant, and they're looking around, and if they see something disturbing to them, they're going to do a bad write-up. One of the things that the FDA is doing, though, is they are training the Indian generic manufacturers on quality control, and they have, and that's a really nice thing. The problem is also in China, the FDA wants to get more inspectors in there, and they're getting trouble getting visas. We're not having the greatest relationship with China of the last year or
I
so.
know. Yep.
And it's getting
That's
hard for
true.
the FDA. And what scares me with 59, 60, or 70 products being made in China, and our relationship with China deteriorates to the point where we're not getting it, what's going to happen to the suppliers?
It's
I don't
very
know why
scary.
we can't
Yes.
get American companies to make
Yes.
our products. Now, the one other thing that I also have to mention is that the brand manufacturers buy their ingredients, and they could be buying their ingredients from China. They could be buying their ingredient from India, from other sources. They're not necessarily bought in the United States. I just had a client call up and said, I'm using Januvia, made by Merck Sharp and Dome. And it said that the primary ingredient, the active ingredient, is bought from India. Well, it happens to be true. An awful lot of the primary ingredients, the major drug manufacturers, the brand manufacturers, don't make the ingredients themselves. They buy the ingredient in most cases, and they're buying it. And India has always been a major source for that. And that's one of the things that the FDA is always checking out, making sure that the ingredients going into the brands that are being sold here in the United States are met up to snuff.
Now you have actually, though, been purchasing from New Zealand and from Turkey. Why don't you tell everybody where you primarily deal with, who you deal
we're
with?
a call center, and we're a call center for a New Zealand pharmacy. It's the same way that you've heard of Canadian pharmacies, the New Zealand pharmacy. Canada really is an enormous country, but it has a very small population. And it's almost the entire population is just along the border. And so they can't manufacture that many products. And in order to meet their universal health coverage needs, they buy their medications from overseas. And the same goes for New Zealand. It's a small country, and they can't manufacture that much. So I got hold of this New Zealand company, enormous pharmacy. They do $8.5 million worth of sales. They're a fulfillment house, and what we do is we run ads. That's what happens. People call us and want to get an order, and then we place the order with New Zealand. We have a direct line right with them. It's a portal that we go right in, and they then handle the ordering of the products. The products will come from either New Zealand, Australia, the UK, Turkey, and India. Those are the only 5 countries that I had to take it back. Sometimes it comes from Denmark, sometimes from Italy. I was surprised. Made in those countries. And,
Do they have what's equivalent to an FDA, so they inspect?
Well, the thing is, almost every drug manufacturer in the world has a plant in Turkey. And if not that, they have a plant in India. Now, the Turkish products the drug manufacturers have an agreement with the European equivalent of the FDA because the products are coming into Europe. It's that whole Euro setup where they have one European drug checking agency, and they have to meet this, and they meet the standards for Europe. Now, I don't know. When we're selling products made by, let's say, Merck Sharp and Dome, Novartis, Bristol Myers, or whatever, and they're coming from and for the European market, I'm comfortable that the manufacturer meets standards. To this day, I can't understand why the FDA and the European agency just don't go together and make things easier.
Sounds logical.
Now, the reason that we like buying products that are sold in Europe is that almost every drug every country in Europe is on price controls, unlike another country that we love. And it just
too bad.
bothers me
Yeah,
that when
it's
they
terrible.
pass the drug the Medicare drug plan, they said, Medicare, you can't negotiate prices.
Terrible. Yeah,
And I'm
it's been
pretty
terrible.
sure that at one point, when the drug manufacturers they have the largest lobby there is, and that if we can get Congress to finally break away from these lobbies and say, hey, we got to take care of our seniors
Yes.
because they're the biggest buyers of medications.
Let me tell everybody you've been listening to Arthur Oken, who is the owner and the founder of SavOn Global Meds. And I just want to give you a way you can go online to SavOn, SAVON, globalmeds.com, or you can actually make the phone call, and you can call the office at 561-432-3294. So when people start ordering with you, and they order, I guess, a 90-day supply, is that what happens?
Well, let's put it this way. It takes anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks for the product to arrive. Usually around 3 weeks. And so if you ordered a month, you wouldn't even have a chance to reorder because and what happens is the more you buy, the lower the price goes per pill.
Really?
Yes. An awful lot of the Canadian pharmacies, what they do is they'll give you a price for 30. And then when you want a 90-day supply, they triple the price. That's not the way the game is played. The pharmacy that we work with, they give us the lower prices. They pass on the lower prices, and we're able to be quite competitive. I'm sure that there may be some Canadian companies that are cheaper than us, but we're here in the United States.
Yeah.
We're right here in Lake Worth.
Yes.
If people want to come to our office, we're in Lake Worth. If you're in that vicinity, and we get a lot of people who come into the office, but it's just that the more you buy, and what happens is we have some people who buy 1,200 pills. They have to take 4 a day.
Oh, I can't even imagine that.
I just had a person call me up and said, I take 16 of these. She's on
of one particular medication?
One particular medication. She's on dialysis, and she has to take 16 pills a day of this product called Renvela. And can you imagine if?
No.
I mean, the price was like, I gave her a price. I think it was like 700 and change. She says, "Can you do better?" I says, "I can guarantee you that you won't find anyone charging less, and your insurance is charging you $4,500 for the 3-month supply."
And so she buys a 3-month supply.
You know what? And it kills me. It literally kills me that someone has to spend that money. I have some people who spend over $1,000 for a 3-month supply of medication.
Well, let me, as you're talking about this, and I know that you're not a pharmacist, but you've been around so long, you can tell me.
Well, I did work for a couple of drug companies over the years.
Oh, see, you keep amazing me every time I talk to you. So my question is, where should you keep your medications?
Wow, that's a big switch. Well, first of all, don't keep them.
You're so smart. I want to know.
First of all, don't keep them in your car. Don't keep them in your car. You have medications that you want to make sure that you always have.
Well, I'm sure you want to take it for morning, noon, and night. Put it in your purse or your pocket or something.
The heat will really cause the product to deteriorate. Try to keep your medication in a cool place in your house.
Not in the refrigerator necessarily.
I've read that you can keep medications in a refrigerator. I read it. I don't know if it's true. There are some medications that have to be refrigerated, but try to keep it in a cool place. If you have air conditioning, make sure that your medication is not in a place where the air conditioning won't reach it.
See, that's why I'm asking you, because these are questions that I've never asked and I've never heard what you're supposed to do. Now, let me ask you this. Is some of your medications, can they be in liquid form rather than in pill form?
Yes, there are a lot of medication. We sell a lot of eye drops. They're all in liquid form. All those for people who have glaucoma or macular.
No, but I mean, let's just say someone has a hard time taking the pill. Can they go to a compounding pharmacy and then they can have it made? How would they do that?
A lot of people should be going to a compounding pharmacy. They can save themselves a lot of money.
They can?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of products that are much cheaper in a compounding than you get from your pharmacy.
Why is
But-
that?
Because they're using the basic ingredients and they just that's what they do. Those small private pharmacies can compound medications often very much cheaper than what you pay for them in the large drugstores. The CVS, Walgreens, they don't do any compounding at all.
Right.
So yes. So if you have like Community or one of those other names, they have the private ones. They do compounding, and often they can help you. It's particularly with where there's multiple ingredients in the medication.
Okay, well, let's jump back to China, because I think what you've done is alerted people now. They can't go, other than coming to you where they know you're not buying anything from China. When they go to a pharmacy, they don't.
I would ask where it's made.
And will they know?
They should.
How will they know? Why?
Where
does that come on there?
They have a bottle that's made by the manufacturer, and the manufacturer often puts the source of the ingredient, the main ingredient.
So people should now, when they go to purchase if they don't buy them from you.
Well, we're not getting branded from China. We're only getting generics.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So generics. Right.
And I would not be concerned if the ingredient is coming from India because the FDA has inspected it. I would be very concerned. I personally will make sure when I go into my pharmacy, I ask, where is this product made? There are cases where for me personally, I use the brand.
Well, that's what we want to know. That's why you're here. Because you've become.
Well, keep in mind, I get the brand cheaper.
Yeah, but you've become a proponent for everybody, and I love that you care so much.
But I'm not talking people out of generics. If
no,
the
I
generics
understand.
are working for you,
just see if they're
good.
made in China.
I would be very concerned. There was a case, and I'm going to my notes. For example, to avoid shortages, the FDA allows imports from some Chinese plants that are banned from quality control. In one plant in China, they got exemptions on 15 ingredients used to make other drugs. For the ingredients, and that plant was banned.
So, how is that possible? I mean, am I being very...
The FDA is not doing its job.
Not doing its job.
And China's not helping. They require the FDA to tell them when they're coming in, and they have to depend. They don't do any testing in China. They depend on the manufacturer's testing. And when they falsify records, which I gather has happened, that's what happens. That's what happened with that one Indian company I was talking about. It was called Ranbaxy. They were falsifying their records. And the company went out of business. It was bought up by another company, and called Sun. And now they're still operating the name Ranbaxy. But even when I see the name Ranbaxy, we don't order anything from that. I still have it in the back of my mind.
I'm so proud of you that you keep so much on top of everything. It isn't just selling these products, but you're reading, you're learning. It's a wonderful thing to deal with you.
Mm-hmm.
You take great pride in this.
I take good pride, and it's a feel-good business. I sell medications. I had a woman call up yesterday. She said, oh, no, it was a man. He says, for Eliquis, I'm paying $400 a month for Eliquis. And I said to him, how does $274 sound? A month? No, I said 3 months. He says, where have you been my whole life?
That's right. That's great.
Well, that's what happens. It's a feel-good business. I mean, I'm in the business to make a profit, but when you're helping people, I've told you in past ones, if you have hepatitis C, you have to use a products, Harvoni or Solvati, two of them. Harvoni is the one that gets advertised a lot on television, and you only have to take it for 2 or 3 months. And wonderful now that has a medication that's come out, and it cures your hepatitis C. It's for the liver, but it's only $97,000.
You've told us about this.
Yes, I'm telling you. And we sold a 2-month supply for $1,400, and a generic approved by the World Health Organization, and also and then a 3-month supply to another one for $1,800. And we called the people up to see if they wanted to renew, and they says, no, it's all cured. And those are the feel goods. We've had cancer patients. We try to keep the prices for cancer products and for people with MS and those kind of things. The company is I got to tell you, it's wonderful working with New Zealand. And it's just, they really feel, that they have to do their job for people who are really in need. What bothers me is I have people who are living off their Social Security, and it's either take my drugs or eat. And, we're there for them to try to lower the price, to help them.
So when people call the phone number that we have been giving, they will talk to one of your representatives?
Well, they'll talk to one of the two ladies that work for me, or they'll talk to me. And if they said they saw the ad in the Boomer Times, I said, go to the left, you'll see I wrote an article.
Right, exactly.
But it's just, it's a feel-good business. And
you're the perfect person. I'm so pleased that that we work together, Arthur. Thank you so much
You're
for
quite
being with
welcome.
us. And we'll talk to you next month. It's a very interesting article you've written for next month.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.